Professional wrestling has accrued a considerable nomenclature through its long existence. Much of it stems from the industry's origins in the days of carnivals and circuses, and the slang itself is often referred to as carny talk. In the past, wrestlers used such terms in the presence of fans so as not to reveal the worked nature of the business. In recent years, widespread discussion on the internet has popularized these terms. Many of the terms refer to the financial aspects of pro wrestling in addition to performance-related terms. This is a dynamic list and may never be able to satisfy particular standards for completeness. You can help by expanding it with reliably sourced entries. A show, a wrestling event where a company's biggest draws wrestle. A team, a group of a wrestling promotion's top stars who compete at an A show, are bought to discontinue a feud, angle, or gimmick suddenly, usually without explanation or due to a lack of fan interest. Often acts as a liaison between wrestlers and higher-level management, referred to as producers by WWE and sometimes by other companies. Sometimes they help train and teach younger active wrestlers and give criticism. Angle, a fictional storyline. An angle usually begins when one wrestler attacks another, which results in revenge. An angle may be as small as a single match or a vendetta that lasts for years. It is not uncommon to see an angle become retconned due to it not getting over with the fans, or if one of the wrestlers currently involved in the angle is fired. Apta Mag, an old-style professional wrestling magazine that sticks to kayfabe articles. The term refers to the magazines at one time connected to journalist Bill Apter, such as Pro Wrestling Illustrated. B show, a wrestling event featuring the middle and lower-level talent of a wrestling promotion. Sometimes includes well-known wrestlers making a return or finishing up their career. B-team, the group of wrestlers on a B show. Frequently, the B-team will compete at a venue the same night wrestlers on the A-team are competing in a different event. Although a promotion will sometimes schedule an event with B-team wrestlers to test a new market. Babyface, a wrestler positioned as a hero, who the crowd are typically cheering for in a match, often simply known as a face. Beatdown, a situation in which a wrestler or other performer is the recipient of a one-sided beating, usually by a group of wrestlers. Blooding, a wrestler intentionally cutting himself to provoke bleeding, also known as juicing. Blind tag, a tag made in a tag team match where the wrestler on the apron tags his partner unbeknownst to them or without their consent. It can also refer to such a tag where the tagger's opponent is unaware a tag has occurred, leaving them open to a blindside attack. Most often occurs when the partner in the ring is thrown against the ropes or backed into their own corner. Blown spot, a missed spot. Blow off the final match in a feud. While the involved wrestlers often move on to new feuds, sometimes it is the final match in the promotion for one or more of the wrestlers. Blow up, to become exhausted during a match. Book, to determine and schedule the events of a wrestling card. The person in charge of setting up matches and writing angles is a booker. It is the wrestling equivalent of a screenwriter. A booker can also be described as someone who recruits and hires talent to work in a particular promotion. The United States District Court for the Southern District of Iowa defined a booker in 1956 as any person who, for a fee or commission, arranges with a promoter or promoters for the performance of wrestlers in professional wrestling exhibitions. Booking is also the term a wrestler uses to describe a scheduled match or appearance on a wrestling show. Bosh, to attempt a scripted move or spoken line that does not come out as it was originally planned. Broadway, a time limit draw. Bump, to fall on the mat or ground. A flat back bump is a bump in which a wrestler lands solidly on their back with high impact, spread over as much surface as possible. A phantom bump occurs when a wrestler or referee takes a bump without a plausible reason. Burial, bury, the worked lowering of a popular wrestler's status in the eyes of the fans. It is the act of a promoter or booker causing a wrestler to lose popularity by forcing them to lose in squash matches, continuously, or participate in unentertaining or degrading storylines. It can be a form of punishment for real-life backstage disagreements or feuds between the wrestler and the booker, the wrestler falling out of favor with the company, or the wrestler receiving an unpopular gimmick that causes him to lose credibility regardless of win-loss record. Business: professional wrestling, instead of profession, or sport. Bust open to start to bleed, typically from the head after being hit with something like a chair, and typically after blooding. See show, an event featuring the lowest level of talent in a promotion, often used as a derogatory adjective. Call to instruct the other wrestler of what is going to happen in the match. Card: the lineup of the matches that will be staged at a given venue for a given performance. The card is generally performed in a roughly inverse order to the way in which it might be printed for posters or other promotional materials. The major matches between well-known opponents may be for titles, and are said to be top of the card, or headliners, while the preliminary matches between lesser-known opponents are said to be the undercard. Carry: the act of one wrestler guiding a typically less experienced performer through a match. Also refers to a match or angle in which a particularly skilled performer is able to make an inferior wrestler look good, or is perceived to be doing all the work. Cheap heat: the incitement of a negative crowd reaction by insulting the crowd en masse, typically by bringing up something unrelated to the wrestling business. Cheap pop: the incitement of a positive crowd reaction by kissing up to the crowd. Heels often follow the same principle but in reverse to get booed. Cheap shot: an underhanded tactic, such as a low blow or a foreign object to get an advantage over an opponent. Claret: to draw blood. Most commonly used in British professional wrestling. Clean finish: a match ending without cheating or outside interference, usually in the center of the ring. Clean wrestling matches pitting two baby faces with no storyline animosity against each other, both obeying the rules throughout. Such matches are characterized by an emphasis on displaying technical wrestling skill instead of working the audience, and a general air of sportsmanship. Although a staple of British and Japanese wrestling, it is uncommon in North America. Closet champion: a title holder who ducks top-flight competition, cheats to win, and, when forced to wrestle good opponents, deliberately causes themselves to be disqualified to retain the title. Color: the amount of blood shed in a match. Comeback: a match in which a wrestler is being dominated and then manages to turn things around and fight back successfully. Usually done by faces to earn sympathy. The expression, feeding a comeback, refers to something heels do to increase the dramatic impact of a comeback. May become a false comeback if ended prematurely. Known informally as hulking up, in reference to Hulk Hogan's signature comeback trait. Crimson mask: a face covered in blood, comparable to a mask. Cross-promotion: an event which occurs when two or more rival promotions put together one card or wrestling event. Some promoters have used cross-promotion style angles to further interest. Cross-promotion dates back to the early days of wrestling, as challenges between rival promoters in the same area often occurred. Dark match: a non-televised match at a televised show. A dark match before the show is often used to test new talent or warm up the crowd. A dark match after the show typically features main event level wrestlers, in order to sell more tickets and send the crowd home happy, without affecting TV storylines. DDT: drape, drop takedown. A common term used when a wrestler drapes their arm over an opponent's head, drops their body, and proceeds to take the opponents down to the mat. Dirt sheet: an insider newsletter in the professional wrestling business, sometimes written in a negative tone or as a means to get dirt. Not to be confused with traditional news. Double team: a tactic used in a tag team match when both members of a tag team gang up on one of the opponents, or a move that involves two wrestlers working in unison. Double turn: the occurrence when both the face and the heel switch roles during an angle or a match. Draw: a wrestler or storyline that attracts the attention of the audience, someone fans are willing to pay to see. Derived from the term drawing money, meaning the wrestler makes money for the promotion. Drop to lose a match or championship. Dusty finish, a finish in which the face appears to win a big match, but the decision is later reversed due to some sort of technicality, such as interference by other heels to save the heel champion, as, in most federations, the title could not change hands on such a disqualification. It can also refer to an ambiguous finish to a match where neither wrestler can be claimed the winner. The Dusty in the term refers to Dusty Rhodes, who booked many such finishes in NWA and later in WCW. Enforcer, a wrestler who accompanies another to matches and acts as a bodyguard. This term was coined by Arn Anderson, whose nickname was the Enforcer. The term can also refer to an individual who acts in a special guest referee capacity from outside the ring, ostensibly to maintain order. Face, also referred to as Babyface, a wrestler who is heroic, who is booked to be cheered by fans. Heels are the opposite of faces, and faces commonly perform against heels. For the ending of the match, a fall is obtained by gaining a decision in any manner, normally consisting of a pinfall, submission, count-out, or disqualification. In a 2 out of 3 falls match, a wrestler must gain 2 decisions to win instead of only 1. Fallout show, the first televised show after a pay-per-view false comeback, a brief offensive flurry by a face before losing momentum back to a heel after being dominated for several minutes. Usually, it occurs before the actual comeback. Also known as a hope spot, false finish, a pinfall attempt which is kicked out of, usually after a finishing move or series of high-impact moves, and are usually kicked out of just before the referee counts to 3. This builds crowd anticipation towards the actual finish. Feud, a staged rivalry between multiple wrestlers or groups of wrestlers. They are integrated into ongoing storylines, particularly in events which are televised. Feuds may last for months or even years, or be resolved with implausible speed, perhaps during the course of a single match. Fighting champion, a champion who defends his title often. Finish, the planned end of a match. Finisher, a wrestler's signature move that usually leads to the pinfall or submission. 5 moves of doom, a particular combination of moves that a certain wrestler tends to use in every match, often in the same sequence, usually ending with their finisher. This term is usually used pejoratively. It was first used in the 1990s to describe the comeback of Bret Hart, and is most notably used today to describe the comeback of John Cena. Foreign object, a weapon that is not allowed to be used in the match, usually found under the ring or ringside, in a wrestler's tights, or handed to wrestlers by managers, interfering wrestlers or audience members. If a foreign object is used behind the referee's back, it usually leads to a pinfall. However, the same object is typically less effective in a match where it is legal. Gas steroids, or stamina. Gassed, exhausted, or out of breath during a match. Gig, the blade the wrestler uses to cut themselves. Gimmick, the character portrayed by a wrestler. Can also be used to refer specifically to the motif or theme evoked by a character, as indicated by their name of costume or other paraphernalia. Glorified jobber, a jobber who defeats pure jobbers, as well as mid-card wrestlers in matches, but consistently loses to main event level wrestlers. Go home to finish a match. One wrestler will tell the other to go home when it is time for them to execute the planned ending for their match. Referees may also tell the wrestlers to go home. Go home show, the final televised show before a pay-per-view event. Gold, the championship belt. Go over to beat someone. Gorilla position, the staging area just behind the curtain where wrestlers come out to the ring, named after Gorilla Monsoon. Green, inexperienced. Refers to a wrestler who is in the early stages of their career and, as a result, may be prone to make mistakes because of their inexperience. Gusher, a deep cut that bleeds a lot, usually caused by a mistake while bleeding but can be intentional. Hardway, bleeding by means other than bleeding. head drop, a move which, as a result of a botch, causes the receiver to be dropped on their head, often resulting in illegit concussion or other injury such as a broken neck. Also, especially in Puroresu, the term can refer to a bump which is intended to make a move appear as if the receiver landed on his or her head. In reality, the full force of the move is intended to be taken on the upper back and shoulders, though such moves still carry a high degree of legitimate risk with them. Heat. Negative reactions from the live fans. When the heat is directed at a heel, this is seen as a positive, as it means fans are reacting in the desired way. Also used to describe real-life tension or bad feeling between two wrestlers. Heel. A wrestler who is villainous, who is booked to be booed by fans. Faces are the opposite of heels, and heels commonly perform against faces. Heel pay-per-view. This is the term for a pay-per-view that is written so that all or a majority of heels are victorious over their opposing faces. It builds up satisfaction for when the face wins at a later event. High rent district refers to the top turnbuckle. If a wrestler is on the top turnbuckle for a diving attack, then the wrestler is in the high rent district. This term was popularized by Jim Ross. High spot. A risky top rope move, or a series of maneuvers perceived as dangerous. Hooker. A wrestler with strong legitimate mat wrestling abilities and an array of match-ending holds known as hooks, hence the name. Hoss. A wrestler who is physically large but lacks other skills. A match between two large men who use plenty of stiff strikes is sometimes known as a Hossfest. Hot shot. A rushed feud, climax of a feud, or big match on television instead of at a pay-per-view in order to get a short-term boost for business. Also applies to angles or turns that are done for shock value rather than acting as a part of an ongoing storyline. Hot tag. In a tag team match, the face is tagged to a fresh partner after several minutes of being dominated by both heels, usually immediately followed by the freshly tagged partner getting in a quick burst of offense. Often the hot tag happens after several teasers. House. The amount of money drawn at a particular event. House show. An untelevised event. Indie, independent promotion. A smaller wrestling company that operates at a local level and typically employs freelance wrestlers, as opposed to signing wrestlers to exclusive contracts. Interbrand. A term used by WWE during their brand extension to reference a match between the Raw, SmackDown, or ECW brands. Interpromotional, also known as cross-promotion. A match or event involving wrestlers from two or more different promotions competing, usually against each other, on the same card. Interference. The act of someone who is not part of the match getting involved. This may involve distracting or assaulting one or more of the participants in the match. Invasion storyline. A storyline in which a group of wrestlers from one promotion appear in another promotion. In some cases, this happens suddenly without advance warning or notice, and usually involves the invaders attempting to take the promotion over. IWC. Internet wrestling community. The community of users that discusses pro wrestling online. The WWE has referred to this community as the Internet Sports Entertainment Community. Jerk the curtain to wrestle. The first match of the card refers to the curtain separating the entranceway from backstage. A wrestler commonly booked in this position is a curtain jerker. Juice. Steroids. Also blood, usually from the forehead. Job to lose in a wrestling match, usually overwhelmingly in squash matches. Jobber. A wrestler who routinely loses in order to build the credibility of other wrestlers, referred to euphemistically as enhancement talent. Jobber to the stars. A slightly higher level of jobber who loses to establish stars while still winning squash matches of their own. Kayfabe. The presentation of scripted actions and worked matches as being legitimate or real. Kick out. To use the legs to literally kick or power out of a pin by using the force made to lift the shoulders off the mat. Legit used to mean real. This refers to a real-life incident or event that has not been booked and is therefore not part of the kayfabe presentation. As such, it can also be used to describe a wrestler with a genuine background in another combat sport and so who has proven real fighting skills. Low card: a wrestler who typically wrestles near the beginning of a show and does not participate in major storylines or matches, often seen as being at the bottom of a promotion's hierarchy. Lumberjack: a wrestler, typically, who stands close to the ring, usually in a lumberjack match, in which he or she is to forcibly return to the ring. Any competitor who attempts to leave is expelled therefrom. Usually, in the case of a heel, he or she is actually helping one or more wrestlers.